Welcome back to Wrestling with Horror. My name is Andrew Dreamer. Thank you for joining me today. And today we're going to be talking about a film that everybody who loves horror movies knows. Let's talk about Friday the 13th. So Friday the 13th was released in 1980. It was written by Victor Miller and directed by Sean S. Cunningham. Now, this film is the only film in the franchise that Cunningham directed, and to be honest with you, that's probably for the best. Now, I know this film is iconic. It is responsible for creating one of, if not the biggest horror franchises in history, for creating one of the biggest horror villains in Jason Voorhees. But before we got 11 other sequels, 12 movies in total, we started right here with this very low budget 1980 film. It's pretty well known. It's been admitted by Sean S. Cunningham that this film was made as just a quick cash grab to rip off Halloween to capitalize on the success of John Carpenter's 1978 classic. And that's pretty obvious. There's a lot of things that this film copies from Halloween. The POV shots, just the slasher aspect that was still pretty new at this point. Now this is just 2 years after Halloween was released. And at this point, this is, again, 1980. This was before that everybody started doing the imitators and just slasher after slasher after slasher of nothingness. This film was one of the earliest imitators of Halloween. But is it a good film? Is it a bad film? Does it get credit for things that it shouldn't? Is it better than people give it credit for? Is it worse? Well, I'm going to give you my thoughts, and I know other people have talked about this ad nauseum, but I feel like it's only right for me to give my thoughts as well. Now, it's something that I've wanted to do since I started this channel, is kind of go through the big franchises and do some reviews. I'm not sure if I'm going to review every movie in all of the franchises. Probably not. At least not right now. But I want to kind of do the original movie of each of the major franchises. And so we're starting with this one. I've talked about Halloween enough. So let's talk about Friday the 13th. So basically this film takes place at Camp Crystal Lake. It is, again, 1980. And basically it's just a whodunit. You know, you spend the whole movie not really knowing who the killer is. You keep looking, saying, who is this? Who is this? Who could it be? But when you get to that third act reveal, and I'm not taking anything away from Betsy Palmer, she's the best part of this movie by far. But when you get to that third act reveal, it's just kind of, Again, this is just an imitator of Halloween. It's not the best. I don't think that it properly capitalizes on the success of Halloween at the time. I think there are things that they could have done better. Number one, I don't think Sean S. Cunningham is a very good director. You know, I respect what he's done in the horror community and with horror films, but as a director, I just don't feel like he has what it takes to direct a good film. A lot of this stuff in this film just felt very film school, if that makes sense. And I feel like having a different director in the chair could have possibly benefited. And just to briefly touch on Friday the 13th Part 2, it's essentially the same film. You're swapping out Mrs. Voorhees for Jason, which is fine. You know, it's something that they didn't really plan on from the beginning, but it worked out that way. That's okay. But as far as the direction goes, Steve Miner does a much better job than Cunningham ever could have done. Now, the writing in this film, I don't think it's the best. Victor Miller was just doing what he was told. He was getting a paycheck, and you know what? Hats off to him. He wrote a movie. He got his movie made. I'm sorry to go off on another tangent, but I just wanted to address this while it's in my head. We have just recently got the resolution of the infamous Friday the 13th lawsuit that has been taking place between Sean S. Cunningham and Victor Miller. The lawsuit basically is over who has the rights for the name Friday the 13th, for the character of Jason Voorhees, for Camp Crystal Lake, for domestic rights, international rights. And there's a lot of legal stuff that I don't know enough about to really speak confidently on, so I won't. But I'm sure everybody here's heard the news. We're getting the prequel series on Peacock, simply called Crystal Lake. I am so glad that we're getting Friday the 13th back on our screen soon. Maybe I wanted something a little different. I think a lot of people did. But now that we've heard that Jason will be a part of it in some way, whether it be flash forwards or whatever it could be, I'm just excited that we're finally getting Friday the 13th back. I really like this franchise. It might not be my favorite, but I enjoy a lot of these movies. And I can't wait. I'm so excited, and I will gladly take anything they give us at this point. I want Jason back. I want Friday the 13th back. So we'll keep an eye out for that. And when that does officially drop and we get trailers and things like that, I will absolutely cover them. But enough of that tangent. Let's get back to the film that started this franchise. Again, this is a very iconic film. I'm not going to completely run through the plot. I think we all know what the plot is. The best parts of this film, I already said Betsy Palmer. Hands down the best part. Crazy Ralph, he kind of makes the film a little more enjoyable. His character is so just out there. And it gives you something to enjoy for this runtime where not much happens. And that's another problem I have with the film. There's a lot of screen time and just absolutely nothing happens. We see Alice do several things for minute after minute after minute, and it's just like, what's the point? You're trying to fill a runtime and you don't really have any story to fill it, so you're just having her do these random nonsensical tasks. Now, my overall thoughts on this film, I think I appreciate the film more than I actually enjoy the film, if that makes sense. I respect what it gives us, the legacy that it created in the long term, but as a standalone film, it is pretty forgettable. Again, the third act of the film, you get Betsy Palmer coming in, who, by the way, is a character that we never saw the entire film. And we're just supposed to be like, oh, who's this random person? Like, yeah, no crap, it's the killer. Who else would it be at this point? So you get her, but she comes in and she just does a fantastic job. The way she delivers her dialogue is very creepy, and she delivered on that character. And it's pretty well known that she did not think anybody would ever see this movie. We all did. And, hats off to her. She actually crushed it in this film. But that third act, you get the fight between Mrs. Voorhees and Alice, and it culminates with Alice obviously chopping Mrs. Voorhees' head off with a machete, which we all know what that machete would become famous for down the line. This film is also one of the earliest films in Kevin Bacon's career, and I think it's always nice when you see actors that start out in horror like this. Most of them tend to just push it to the side and try to forget that they were ever involved. But Kevin Bacon's actually been in a lot of horror movies that are pretty good. He was in The Hollow Man, a different take on The Invisible Man. He did Stir of Echoes, which is just a phenomenal horror movie. And more recently, he's been in a film called You Should Have Left, which I quite frankly enjoyed a lot, and I might actually even do a review of it sometime in the future. But if you haven't seen that film, check it out. It's definitely worth the watch. It's very creepy and suspenseful, and there's actually some pretty good twists in there. But I can't leave this film without talking about one of the best special effects artists in the business ever, Tom Savini. The work he did in this film, and so many others, but this film is just, it's out of this world. His practical effects are so good. The Kevin Bacon death with the coming up through his chest and the blood coming out, and it's phenomenal. I love his work in this film. Tom Savini is just a freaking legend, and anytime you see his name on a film doing makeup effects, you know you're in for a treat. But that's pretty much all that I've needed to say about Friday the 13th. Overall, not my favorite movie. Probably not even top 5 in the franchise for me. I respect this movie so much for what it gave us, but it's not that good. It's not that good. And some people might hate me for saying that, but that's just my opinion. I think there's so many things that are done better in future sequels, and that's pretty much it. That's what we got. And then that last jump scare with little kid Jason coming up out of the water. Yeah, it's a good jump scare. Doesn't really make sense, but it made for a good last little jump scare. So anyway, those are my thoughts on Friday the 13th. Let me know down below if you love this movie. What do you like about it? Where do you actually have this movie in your Friday the 13th ranking? Let me know if you hated the movie as well. Let me know if there's something that I didn't cover as a reason for hating it. Let me know why you chose that reason to hate this movie. But as always, thank you for all of your support. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Turn your notifications on so you never miss a video. My name is Andrew Dreamer, and I will see you next time on Wrestling with Horror.